Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so this morning I'm going to be speaking to Tom. Tom belongs to the Toastmasters, the soulful speakers, and I belong to the same club. Yeah, and I hope to return to as soon as possible, at least online. But anyway, the reason why I am speaking to Tom, because if he had not told us that he had some speech impediment, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known whatsoever. I wouldn't have a clue. So it would be interesting to see how he managed to overcome all that, because that must have been quite a journey to overcome that. And I can imagine if you had it from an early age at school, must have been very difficult, and that kind of thing. So anyway, because I don't know your life, so only you can tell us. Okay. Right. Okay. So how did you deal with it?
How did I deal with it? Well, I guess as a little bit, as I'll actually give a little bit of background first, if that's all right.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Tom, and I had a speech impediment when I was a young child, which actually is a very normal thing. So a lot of people have a speech impediment when they're a child, but they naturally grow out of their speech impediment when they're around 4 or 5 years old.
I see. Yeah.
I actually grew out of my speech impediment, but then when I was around 11 or 12, my speech impediment returned to me, and I struggled with it all through my teenage years. And when I was 18 years old and I was about to go to university, that's when I decided to really make a change. And I said to myself, I really want to basically overcome this speech impediment. And that's when I started taking a number of actions that have really helped me to improve. So
right. Okay. So you went to university and you still had it when you went to university?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then when you say speech impediment, obviously, how severe was it?
At its worst, it was pretty bad, to the point where I would avoid public speaking. A very common example was at school, in classrooms. If the teacher asked for an answer, I'd know the answer, but I would never put my hand up because I was basically really scared of having a speech impediment. And obviously I got picked on at school. When you have a speech impediment, it really impacts your confidence, basically.
Yeah.
So I used to avoid a lot of basically speaking in. It doesn't matter if it was classrooms or doing public speaking. I always just used to avoid it, and that was basically my technique for quite a few years, was to just avoid it, basically. But then when I went to university, I said, I can't. If I want to go where I want in life, then I can't just avoid it. I'm going to have to overcome it. And that's when I started to actually tackle it head on, basically.
Right. So that's fantastic. So you actually made the decision to tackle it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was an active decision. Yeah. I decided I had basically a change in my thoughts, and rather than running away from the problem, I decided to basically turn around and be very proactive about it. And that comes with its own challenges, and it's really hard, but it's paid off. So
yeah, I can see, because I understood. You're so clear. That's great. Yeah. And then actually, what I like what you just said, you actually made the decision. So that's actually, and then I can imagine a switch in your brain. Yeah, I made the decision. And it's often the case for other areas in our life. For example, so we don't have that too much, but for example, a lot of people have got the fear of public speaking, but then if you make the decision, and after all, then you tell yourself, oh, what I've got to lose, then you realize then you can do it. So often it's down to the decision of often more, I would say 99 whatever the percentage is.
It's a very high percentage, isn't it?
Yeah, it comes down to the decision of the individual.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's great what you're saying, because that could encourage people in other areas of their life that they may want to change.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say it's not just in regards to having a speech impediment, but so many areas of your life, whether, for example, you're overweight and you want to lose weight, etc., etc. Often the first step is to just basically make a choice. And even making that choice is an incredibly kind of empowering moment, so to speak. So, and making that choice is often quite hard, which is why a lot of people don't do it. But when you do make that choice, that is the first step to making a positive change. So if people are, I always say that if you're not happy with where you are in life,
Yeah.
you're not happy with a certain aspect of your life, then
Yeah.
the first step to do is to make a conscious effort to say, I want to change it.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's the
that's fantastic what you just said. I think you're right. And then when I was speaking to you the other day, you mentioned a book that actually inspired you. Do you want to tell us about that book?
Yes, I'd love to. So, back in, again, just to give everyone a bit of context, actually,
Yeah.
back in 2018 now, this was a point in my life where I'd been working on my impediment for some time, and it had improved, but it was still there. And 2018, I went through quite a rough year, I'd say. And a friend of mine had a book which he gave to me, and it was called "Climb Your Mountain" by Craig Thomas Hammond. And what I found really sort of inspirational about this book was that, so Craig Thomas Hammond was, he had a very bad, incredibly bad speech impediment, and he had a very difficult life, and his dream was he wanted to be a motivational speaker. However, he had this incredibly bad speech impediment, so for him it was always just a dream. However, then one day he decided to make changes basically in his life, and the book is about how he overcame his difficulties and achieved his dream, and it's very inspiring. And the name of the book, "Climb Your Mountain," climb is actually an acronym. Now,
Yeah.
I can't recall what each of the letters means off the top of my head, but each letter is an attribute to basically change your life and
Ah,
forms a chapter
I see.
within.
Yeah.
And he draws on his own experiences and how he overcame his traumas and difficulties. And if you really want to make a change in life, you can draw a lot of parallels between what's in his book and perhaps what's in your life and how you can change it. And one thing that I really picked up from his book was he specifically mentioned Toastmasters
Oh,
in
yeah.
his
All
book.
right. Okay. That's interesting. So Toastmasters played a big role in his life and in yours.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure to what extent it played in his life, but I know that he for a time he definitely became a Toastmaster, and he said that it helped. I remember in his book quite explicitly he said it really helped with improving his speech. And at this point, I had no idea what Toastmasters was. So naturally, what I did first was I went straight on Google and I Googled it, and it looked like, a very good environment to practice speaking, but not just speaking, but just to gain confidence as well. And that's how I actually started Toastmasters,
All
was
right.
via.
Okay. So when did you join Toastmasters? Because I remember you, yeah. But when did you join it? Did you join it after I did?
Yes, that's correct. So I joined October 2018.
Oh, so it's quite recent, isn't it?
Yeah, I've only been a Toastmaster for 1.5 years now. Yes,
Wow. So it's very recent, actually. Do you want me asking how old you are?
I am 26.
26. Yeah. Right. No, I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And then so but also when I spoke to you the other day, you mentioned that the NHS, and it's quite hard to go on it, but you mentioned did you have something with regards to
Yes.
helping people with speech impediment?
So I was very fortunate. I must stress that I was very fortunate in that when I really decided quite a few years ago now, when I was 18 years old, when I decided I really wanted to make a change, I had a friend at the time who really helped me out, and he got me a speech therapist on the NHS.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
it just so happened that my speech therapist was based in Leeds, and I went to Leeds University. So it all worked out quite well. And initially what happened was I think, I can't recall the exact frequency, but I think twice a month for a year,
Yes.
I went and had speech therapy. And that process itself was very interesting. So I think for people who don't have a speech impediment, what you have to bear in mind is that a speech impediment is actually like an iceberg.
Yes.
So what you see is people stuttering, having low confidence,
Yeah.
but actually having a speech impediment underneath, what a lot of people can't see is how it has an impact on so many areas of your life. So as part of the speech therapy, we really broke down my speech impediment and trying to work out where did it come from, which areas of my life it's having impacts on, how I can improve it. And that was very helpful. Another thing was forcing me to actually stutter. So the speech therapist would
Oh.
make me stutter. And the reason for that was she wanted to normalize it for me. So she wanted me to stutter so that I was no longer embarrassed about it.
Ah,
So
see. Right.
make me stutter so that it just became normal. And again, another thing which we ultimately found that how I was dealing with my speech impediment up until I was 18 years old is a very common technique called avoidance. So I'd avoid circumstances, and I would actually do another trick, which would be I did word swapping. What that means is when I'm having a conversation with a person, if
Yes.
I know a word is coming up that would cause me to stutter, I would switch that word out for another word, which is basically the equivalent, if you like.
Oh, I see. So is that a technique to be able to control it, or is it just a technique to avoid something?
I should stress that that is not a good technique.
Right.
That's
Okay.
that was a habit that I had used to
Ah,
avoid.
see. Yeah, you're on a bit. Yeah.
So yeah, it worked, but I must stress it's a bad habit. Do not do it.
Right.
Uh, my uh, speech therapist at the time, she said it must be exhausting for you because your brain's having to do twice the work. Because as I was having conversations with people, I'd be talking,
Yeah.
and then internally I'd be swapping words out and avoiding words, and so basically, yes, that's how I was avoiding it, and it kind of worked, but it was exhausting. It's a bad habit, and I would stress that don't do it. Avoidance is a lot of people do it because it's easy. It's easier to avoid
Oh,
the
I see.
problem.
Yeah.
Um, so then after I'd had my speech therapy for around a year or so,
Oh,
I,
right. Okay. Yeah.
I also did something called speaking circles. And speaking circles was a group of people, all with speech impediments,
Right.
all of different ages, different walks of life, different levels of speech impediment as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I can imagine some are more severe than others.
Yes, yes. I think by the time I did speaking circles,
Yeah.
if we have a scale, so to speak, of this,
Yeah.
I reckon I was kind of somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And there were people who had far, far worse speech impediments than myself. And that actually really put everything
Perspective. Yeah.
into yes, exactly. Because I realized that not only other people have them, but some people's are far worse
Oh,
than mine as well. And it must be very difficult for them. And speaking circles was all based on, it was a 2 hour evening where everyone everyone with a speech impediment would come together in a group. It would be led by two speech therapists.
oh yes.
Every week there would be an activity or a theme. And so I remember one week we had a session on telephone calls. So telephone calls are something that most people with speech impediments find incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Another week we did public speaking. So
Oh,
there
I
was,
see. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and, and yeah, it was just it was so nice to have these activities to basically stutter in a safe environment and to become used to it.
And then if when you do, then you're not ashamed of it.
Exactly. Yes.
I
Yes.
think that's
Exactly.
probably a very important point, because when we are ashamed of something, then we try all, whether this is about speech impediment or something else. When we are ashamed of something, the natural reaction would be to just hide it somewhere in the back of the room, in the back of your mind, in the back somewhere. Yeah, and then so I think that's great. Now, I was going to say, and the speech circle. How do you get in touch with them? How do you find about speech circles?
Speaking circle. Well,
Oh, speaking circle, is it? Or speaking circles, yeah.
speaking circles. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking circles. So I did speak. I should probably stress now. I did speaking circles 7 to 8 years ago now. So I don't know if the format has changed or not.
Right.
But you can get speech help on the NHS.
Oh,
So
you
if
can, yeah.
you do research and see what your local NHS offers, because it does vary. Fortunately, it does vary around the country and the services that are offered.
In each, yeah. Whether you live in Lancaster, let's say, or Blackburn,
Yes,
and the services might be different. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
okay.
I think I'm not sure how easy it is this day, or well, I'd reframe that, how hard it is, might be a better term, to get help on the NHS. So, but it's worth, I don't have all the details, but it's definitely worth having a look online, seeing what services are offered, because although you might not be able to get one-to-one appointments,
right,
there might be groups like what I did, and that is still incredibly helpful. Just to go to a group, basically a speaking group. It doesn't have to be NHS. It could be Toastmasters.
Well, absolutely, because Toastmasters. Actually, I've seen another. I think I remember a guy there, and I don't think it's you, but somebody. Yeah, he had speech impediment, and it was, and I haven't seen him afterwards. But anyway, he was at Salford Speakers, and he was too, that probably before you came on the scene. And then he was there doing, I can't remember if it was a speech he prepared or if it was an impromptu speech, or what, for 2 minutes. But he stood there in front of the group, about 20 of us, like in a U shape at the time. Yeah, he was still there. Yeah. And it took him about 5 to 10 minutes, well, quite a long time, probably an eternity for him, I can imagine, to get the first word out. It just couldn't get out. And I admire his courage, to be honest, because I was actually quite, I admired his courage to stand there. And it took him about 5 to 10 minutes for the first word to come out, and everybody clapped at the end of his speech. And then there was another guy I remember, and that was so funny. He managed, I don't know if it was him or somebody else. Somebody had a speech impediment. He managed to crack a joke about it. And he said, that was so funny. I'd have to tell. I remember that joke. Oh, he said, I had a job. I found a job as a call center caller. I didn't last long. Yeah. The way he said it, it was so funny. Yeah, and then so.
I picked up on a couple of points there that are quite interesting. One of them being encouragement. So you said that even though this guy struggled for quite a while, to get one word out, and I've been there. I have done that, and it does feels like an eternity. And all you,
I mean, so, like 10 minutes before you, it might sound like, when is it going to?
Yeah, when is the word going to come out? Please come out. But I think it's really good. It's so important to offer people encouragement, because what a lot of people take for granted, which is normal speech.
Oh yes.
other people don't have that. So offering your encouragement to them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and round of applause, telling them they've done a great job, it really helps with their confidence. And then they're much more likely to engage in that kind of activity again. And
Yeah.
that forms the basis for actually overcoming it, or at least improving it.
Oh, what is moving it? Yeah.
And then the humor as well. Humor is an excellent way to sort of build a connection with your audience and sort of take the pressure off a little bit. And I don't know if you recall, Roger, but at Toastmasters, especially when I first joined, and my speeches, even in the past year and a half, has improved quite a bit. But
Yeah.
I was so nervous that
Yeah.
when I used to stand up and do my table topic, which is the impromptu speaking part of the evening.
Yeah, table topic. That's it. I was looking for the word. Yeah, impromptu speech is part of the Toastmaster evening. Yeah.
It's all improvised speaking on the spot. And I don't know if you recall, but I used to use, I still do. I use a lot of humour where I can.
Yes.
Yeah, because it helps to lighten the mood and take the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah.
So I find humour is a nice way to help me become more comfortable.
And absolutely, I agree with you. And then, so when that guy cracked that joke, everybody laughed. You know, they had a laugh. You know, I had a job as a call center. At a call center, I got it. I lost it the following day. And then the way he said it was so it was funny. But you, when I spoke to you a couple of days ago, you also mentioned about breathing technique.
Yes. So in terms of, which aspects would you like to know about in terms of presenting? I've got a few sort of tips, if you like.
I can hear some noise in the background. Somebody's doing some work. Yeah.
Yeah, problem is I'm sat. My housemate has just decided to start doing some DIY. So,
oh, that's why he started to
there's nothing else to do in isolation, is there? So
right, yeah. So right, okay, and then so I mean, I can imagine there will probably be some private help as well for people. I can imagine there will be private.
I mean, I've never had any. I've never paid for sort of private tuition, if you like, but I'm very confident to say that those kind of services will exist. You just need to do the research.
But with the lockdown at the moment, it might be put on hold a little bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, it could be put on hold, or it could be done virtually, perhaps.
Oh yeah, over the internet, like I'm speaking to you now.
Exactly like what we're doing now. So, and in some instances, that might be more challenging for certain people, which therefore makes it better. So I think a very good metaphor is that everyone who has a speech impediment, everyone's is different. And a speech impediment is like a fingerprint. It's very unique to each person. So
yes, it's very unique to each person. Yeah.
What I find difficult, another person might not. So for example, I've met people who in person can speak completely fine, but for some reason, when it's virtually, they find that so much harder.
All right. Oh, I see. So some people will be speaking to you face to face, 2 meters apart these days, but let's say face to face, yeah, and be perfectly fine. But as soon as they go online like we're doing now, it will not come out.
Yes, exactly. Or even vice versa. You can
yeah.
someone. It's so everyone is different. Everyone is different, and the reason I sort of brought that up is that right now, if you were determined enough, despite the lockdown, you could probably get help online, and that might be virtual. And for some people, that might be better than other people.
Right.
Other people might have more of a benefit from doing it in person.
Mm-hmm.
Other people could have a greater benefit if they're doing it virtually. Also, virtual is quite good in the sense that, so earlier I mentioned about how NHS services can vary by region.
Right.
So
yes.
Perhaps if you don't live near a place which has the help you need,
mm-hmm.
there may be the potential to get virtual help. so you can still access those services
Yeah,
whilst.
so in a different way. Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
Right. Okay, right. So if to finish off this, and then don't go straight away when we finish the recording, I'll have a quick one, if you don't mind. Yeah. So if you wanted to encourage anybody out there, do you have any uh, tips or recommendation?
Yes, yeah. I'll try and keep it all in a nice, neat kind of list, if you like.
Yeah, in this kind of listed. Yeah.
But I do have some tips for people from. It's just my opinion, my experience, which really
Yeah.
helped me, and I really hope it helps you guys as well. Number one is the most fundamental thing. The most fundamental thing is you have to be willing to make a change. You have to make a decision to do that, and you also have to accept that change doesn't come easy. So you have to say, yes, I want to change, and I'm willing to put the work in. I think that is literally the first step. So have a think, take the time, make the decision, and say,
Make a decision. Yeah, that's.
make a decision is the first thing you've got to do. Secondly, and this is the bit which people usually don't like, but it's the best way to help with your journey if you have a speech impediment. Expose yourself to very difficult tasks. So go and join a Toastmasters club and do public speaking, as I did. Join up to a speaking competition, as I also did.
Oh, you did? No, I didn't. So I've not been as courageous as you have been. I have not joined the speaking competition yet. Yeah.
So I did a young person's engineering lecture competition. So as a bit of background, sorry, I'm an aerospace engineer. There was a competition to give a technical lecture in front of a large group of people. So I was absolutely scared, but a good mentor of mine at work encouraged me to do the competition, and I did the competition. I was so nervous and so anxious, but it went so well. And afterwards, it made me, and this is really important, it made me realize, wow, I can do this. And then as soon as you realize that, and you sort of realize that the speech impediment, it does not have to constrain you. It does not have to define who you are. It's so.
I'm glad you said that. It doesn't tie, the speech impediment doesn't have to define who you are.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. I think a lot of people fall victim to their speech impediment and never overcome it, or at least if you can't overcome it, at least handle it properly and effectively.
Because they think it's defining them.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Oh, this is what I am. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's defining them, so that's why they don't come out of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, this is the way it's always been. So, it is what it is, and I've got it, and I've just got to live with it. No, you don't. If you really want to make a change, you can. And another metaphor, if you like, for speech impediments, which my speech therapist a long time ago told me, and it has stuck with me. A speech impediment is like having a dog on a retractable leash.
Oh, yes.
The difference between, for example, me and another person who might have a speech impediment is I still have my dog on a leash, and the dog is the speech impediment. But I've got my dog under control.
I see what you mean. You still have it.
You have
it under control. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yes. So whereas other people, they don't have it under control, and it's controlling them. So instead, I've turned it on its head, and now I've regained control of it, and that's really improved my confidence, basically. So speech impediment is, I don't want to promise people it's something that you can completely eliminate. Mm-hmm. You might be able to, but I think for a lot of people, including myself, it's something you always have. You just become a lot better at managing the speech impediment.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? to be honest, it's maybe in a roundabout way, it could have been good to you, in that it made you overcome such a huge problem, it's a huge challenge, but at the same time, you probably speak slower than you would have done, perhaps, if you had not had that problem. And therefore, now you're extremely clear. So when you speak to a group of people,
Yeah.
It's actually kind of making you better because you're clearer. If
Yes,
you know what I mean.
exactly. And I'm going to sound a little bit cliche, perhaps,
Yeah.
or philosophical. Philosophical might be a better word here. But if there's anyone who's going to watch this who really needs help, I would say it's a very basic piece of advice is it really is true that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of things I wouldn't have done if I did not have a speech impediment.
Right.
I wouldn't have done Toastmasters. I wouldn't have done lecture competitions. I've now spoke at technical engineering conferences. So last year I spoke to 140 people down in Bristol. I would have never have done any of this stuff. And I would never have strived as much to improve myself.
Yeah.
If I didn't have this challenge. So having challenges in your life, sorry, this is going a bit broader now, but
that's okay. That's fine, because it's a good advice for a lot of people who have challenges. Yeah, because
if you have challenges in your life, it's not a bad thing. And I feel that challenges in your life, they are what you make them. And you can either let the challenges basically beat you or control you, or through hard work and a decision to say, I want to change, you can turn challenges into opportunities. So that's a broader piece of advice, not just for speech impediments,
but for everything, really.
Everything, basic. Yeah, you have to make a decision. You have to make a conscious decision. You've got to be willing to put the hard work in and expose yourself to the things which you don't like to do. I think that's the really important bit is I have become a lot better at speaking because I do so much of it. And I put myself in challenging, this is the key thing, I put myself in challenging circumstances. I do public speaking on a regular basis now. I'm setting up a new Toastmasters club as well.
Oh, you are fantastic. Oh, like you have to tell me about that when I speak to you after this recording. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We can talk about that offline, but I'm working with a great group of people to establish a new Toastmasters club to help even more people. So yes, I guess ultimately, just to round off, make a decision, work hard, embrace the challenges, and on the way as well, try to help other people.
Yeah, and then don't lead. And then what I really like what you said. Don't let it define.
Yes.
I think
Don't let it define you. Exactly. It's a very small part of you. It's not all of you. So, and like I said, just embrace it. Everybody's different, and where there's challenge, there's opportunity. So remember that.
Okay. Thank you very much. So,